Hello all and welcome to this AWS tutorial on Amazon's Managed Relation Database Service. In today's tutorial, we will see how to launch a MySQL RDS instance and connect and access it using EC2 Linux. Before we go further ahead with the demo and the tutorial, let us review through the steps. First thing that we will do is we will launch a RDS MySQL instance in our default VPC. Now, when you launch this instance, please ensure that you check the free tier option. If the free tier option is not checked, you can potentially land up paying unnecessary charges. The second thing, after we have launched our RDS instance, is we will launch our Amazon Linux EC2 instance. Again, this is going to be a free tier instance again, and this will be launched in a default VPC with a public IP. After we have launched our RDS instance and our EC2 instance, we will connect to our Linux EC2 instance via SSH and install MySQL client on our instance. After our client has been installed, we will connect to our MySQL server using a MySQL client. If our connection is successful, we will create a database, a table, insert a few records, and select the inserted records. Okay, so let's get started with the tutorial. So this is my AWS account, okay, and this is RDS right here. So let's click on RDS. And the first thing that we will do is we will launch a RDS instance. So let it come up. So this is the launch page. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create database right here. Okay, so before you even go ahead and select the engine option, scroll down and check this box. Only enable options eligible for RDS free tier usage. This is extremely important, friends, because if this is not checked, you can potentially land up, provisioning a much larger instance and also incurring unnecessary costs. So ensure that this particular option is checked. So let's go ahead and check this option. So the moment you go ahead and check that option, see it's checked now, okay, you will see that Amazon Aurora has been disabled and you only have options of MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, Oracle, and SQL Server. So for this particular tutorial, we will go ahead and provision a MySQL instance. So select MySQL, ensure that only enable options for free tier eligible is checked and click on next. So as you see, the DB engine type that they have selected, because since this is a free tier option, is the MySQL Community Edition, and that is perfectly fine. I mean, if you're just learning or just exploring MySQL, I would strongly encourage that you go ahead and use the free tier option. We will leave the license model as general public, DB version as 8.0, and then scroll further down. So the next thing that I want to bring to your attention is this, again, the free tier message that is coming up right here. So since we are using the free tier, it is telling us that Amazon free tier provides a single DB T2 micro instance as well as up to 20 gigabits of storage, allowing new AWS customers to gain hands-on experience with Amazon RDS, and that is perfect. So the instance that it has selected over here, as you see, is DBT2 micro right here, where my mouse is right now. Or let me just even highlight it to you. So this option. So let it be DBT2 micro. Okay, we don't want to select a bigger box. This is just for demo purposes or learning purposes. And if you select a bigger box, yes, you will incur charges. By default, when you are in the free tier mode, you will see that there are no other options coming up over here. So hence, it's very important that you enable the free tier option in the previous screen. Okay, so let's scroll further down. And as you see, this is not going to be a multi-AAZ deployment. So by default, no is selected. And again, this is because this is a free tier option. It is going to by default provide us 20 gigabytes of SSD space. So that's fine. That's as mentioned over here. It gives us 20 gigabytes of storage space. So that's okay. Again, settings. So now we need to provide a name over here for our DB instance. So I have basically captured everything right here in a notepad. So what I'm going to do is my username, password, DB instance, everything is just going to be MySQL DB 2018. And this is purely because I don't forget while I'm giving you this demo. And I would strongly encourage, if you're just playing around, just use the same thing so that you don't have to remember much. So let's go back and copy it right here. So our DB instance identifier is going to be MySQL 2018. And our username is going to be the same. Our password is also going to be the same. And I'm just going to go ahead and confirm the password. And then go ahead and click on next. So as you see, it's asking us which VPC you want to launch this in, and I will be launching this for this RDS instance for this demo in my default VPC. It's going to use the default subnet. If you want, you can give it public accessibility. It's up to you. I'm not going to make this public accessible, so I'm just going to say no. Availability zone, no preference, or if you want, you can go and say select a particular availability zone. So you can say US East A1. I generally prefer that. It's going to create its known VPC security group. So that's perfectly fine. And if you want to give by default a database that needs to be created, then you can. If not, you can just leave this empty. Please note the port over here. So the port that MySQL uses is 3306. And this is very important because we will have to enable this port on our EC2 as well, so that our EC2 can communicate with our RDS instance. I'm going to leave the DB parameter group and option group by default. No encryption will be enabled. As you see, it's disabled again, depending upon the engine and the free tier option and everything. Some of these features might not be available. As you see, encryption is disabled right now. Backup. So by default, as you see, it's 7 days. And again, as it's showing over here, that by default, automated backups are currently supported for INODB storage. If we are using my IASM, then we need to schedule a backup. So we are covered at this point of time because it's INODB. And I don't have any specific preference for my backup window. I'm just going to leave this, by default as 7. I'll disable any monitoring. Again, logging I'm going to disable at this time. If you happen to check the logging, ensure that after you have deleted this instance, ensure that you've also deleted the logs, okay? Otherwise, it's just going to take up space. As far as any version upgrades, you can enable that. Again, no preferences for any maintenance windows over here. And yes, as far as deletion protection is concerned, I'm going to actually go ahead and uncheck this so that I can go ahead and delete this instance once I'm done. And finally, we'll go ahead and click on create database. So let's have this database created shortly. So as you see, a database instance is being created right now. And let's go ahead and view the instance details. It takes a few minutes for the RDS instance to be provisioned. So be patient. And what we are going to do is, by the time it's it provisions this particular instance, we will actually provision our EC2 instance and also install our MySQL client on it, so that once this instance is up and running, we are able to connect to it. So as you see, the status is still creating. And if you scroll further down, is still the endpoint is not yet available because it's still creating it. Port by default, we know it's going to be 3306, but it's yet not available. The security rules are also being created, and these are just the default options. So we're just going to leave this as it is right now and go ahead and provision our EC2 instance. So let's click on EC2. Okay. And after the page loads, what we will do is we will launch a Amazon Linux EC2 instance. Again, this is going to be a free tier instance. So you're more than welcome to use non-free tier, but I prefer to use free tier for demo and learning purposes. So check on free tier right there, select Amazon Linux and click on select. And we are going to use a T2 micro instance. Click on configure details as we are going to launch one instance and default VPC. I'll try and launch this in the same subnet as my RDS, which is US East 1A. And we are going to enable auto assign public IP so that we can connect to this instance. We'll basically SSH into it and then install our client. So let's click on add storage. We're going to leave this default tags. You can probably give a name. We can say EC2 MySQL, configure security groups. We're going to create a new security group, and that's going to call it, we're going to call it as EC2 MySQL SG. So we know why we created this security group and what it stands for. And as you see, by default, we have SSH added over here. But since we will be connecting to our RDS instance, we will add another rule over here. And in type, scroll further down and look for MySQL Aurora. So there it is, MySQL Aurora. So again, it uses the same port 3306. So select MySQL/Aurora right there, 3306 custom, and this is going to be, it's up to you, but I'm just going to leave this default at this time and click on review and launch, and finally launch. I'm going to use my AWS key pair. So just go ahead and check the box and then click on launch instances. Okay, so our instance is currently being provisioned and it should be up and running shortly. So as you see, there it is. This is our instance that is coming up at this time. And this is the public IP of this instance. So let's copy this public IP. And what we will do is we will connect to it using PuTTY. So copy the address, IP address right there. I'm going to increase the font size so that you can easily read. And finally, we will select our private key file. So this is a private key file. Click on open. And there it is. So click on yes and EC2-user. And there we are. We are connected to our EC2 instance. So the first thing that we will do is we will change our user to the root user, so sudo su. And if I have to go back to the steps over here, if you remember, if I get my presentation, then, okay, there it is. So we have launched our RDS MySQL instance. We've launched our Amazon EC2 instance. We have connected to our Linux EC2 instance via SSH. And the next step is to go ahead and install MySQL client. So let's do that. So the command for that is yum install MySQL and hit enter. So as you see, our installation is currently in progress. So say yes, and the installation should be completed in a bit. So there it is. So our installation has been completed. Okay, so my SQL client has been installed. So the next thing that we will do is we will connect to our MySQL RDS instance. So let's check if our instance is up and running now. So click on Services, RDS. And sometimes it takes a little bit to show up. Hopefully this has been provisioned. So click on DB instances and then, okay, it's backing up right now. Okay, let's see if it's available or not. Okay, it is still backing up. It's probably not yet provisioned. Let me see if the endpoint is available. Okay, the endpoint is available. So let us see if we can try and connect to this. Okay, so we're going to copy the endpoint from here and I'm going to switch to my notepad now. So this is the command to connect to our MySQL server using a MySQL client. So as you see, we need to replace this MySQL instance DNS right here. So I'm going to copy the DNS name here. And then basically this is the port 3306. This is the user. Remember, we have a username, password, and everything as MySQL DB 2018. And once we paste this particular command, it will prompt us for the password. So let's copy this and go back to our SSH window. So it's right here. So I'm going to clear this. Okay, there it is. So let's now say MySQL, our DNS, our port, and our user. So hit enter. It's asking me for the password. So when I type the password, you'll not be able to see it, but be rest assured that I'm typing the password. So our password is basically MySQL DB 2018 and hit enter. And if this is successful, it will give us the MySQL prompt. Okay, I believe it is still backing up at this time. Okay, so I'm going to wait for a little bit for it to come up. I think it's still backing up. So yeah, it's still backing up. So I'm going to pause the video. And once this becomes available, I will resume recording. So we're going to give it a little bit, okay? I'll pause the recording now. So as you see, our RDS instance is available now. The status is available, it's done backing up. And if you scroll further down, you will be able to see all the details. So this is our endpoint. This is the port 3306 right here. It is not publicly accessible. And these are the security groups, as you see that it has created. So it's created two security groups. So it's one security group over here. And if you notice, the CIDR block for inbound, it is the very same, I believe this is the IP address of the RDS. And outbound communication is all open. And then these are the other details. This is the ARN, this is the engine. Again, this is the generic license that we have selected. This is our default VPC, our availability zone, the subnets that are available in the security group, and rest of the other parameters right here. So let us click on the security group and review the security group. Okay, so this is our security group right here. And if you click on inbound, you will see that type is MySQL TCP 3306, but the source is essentially the IP address of the RDS instance itself. So if you click on edit, and instead of this, what we need to, since we are going to connect using our EC2 instance, we are going to key in the security group for our EC2, and that is EC2 MySQL SG. So we are able to connect to this particular instance using our EC2 instance. So click on save. And for outbound, all communication, all ports are all open. Okay, so now let us go back to our PuTTY session. And since our instance has been provisioned now, we should be able to connect. So let's try and connect. So it's the same command, MySQL, giving the DNS name of our MySQL RDS instance. The port is 3306, and this is our username, MySQL DB 2018, and it will prompt us for the password. So hit enter. So our password again is MySQL DB 2018, and hit enter. And there it is. So we are now connected to our MySQL server. So after we have connected to our MySQL server, we will basically create a database, add a table, insert a few records in our table, and then try to retrieve those inserted records. So if I switch back to my notepad, I'll basically create a database called as books.db. Okay, I'm going to make it books.db right there, and go here and paste it right there with a semicolon and hit enter. So as you see, query okay, one row affected. That means this particular database was created successfully. We can actually check that by saying show databases. And as you see, our books DB is right here with the rest of the other system databases. Okay, so after we have created our database, we are going to use our database. Let's say books DB is our database name. And I believe, did I give that? Oh, it's books DB, my bad. Okay, so the database has been changed to books DB now. And we will create a table. This is our table. And let's paste it right here. So we're going to create a table over here called as books with the columns book ID, title, author, published date, description, and we are going to create a primary key on book ID because that is an auto incremented value. So hit enter and a table should be created. So as you see, our table has been created. Query okay. Show tables. And as you see, our tables is right here, books. After we have created the books table, we will insert a couple of records. So I've created two records. One is to learn AWS RDS. So let's paste it right here. So insert. And all that we are providing right now is the title and the author name. So let's hit enter. Okay. It did not like, I forgot the commas. I need to put the commas right there. Okay. So I forgot the quotes over there, guys. So please ensure that you have the quotes and then hit enter. So as you see, our record has been inserted. And the same thing is going to be true for Mary Jane as well for MySQL tips and tricks. So let's copy this right here, second record, and we will insert this record in our table. So as you see, both of our records have been inserted. If you want, you can potentially create a couple of other books. Let's say MySQL best practices, and we hit enter. So now we have 3 records. So let us go ahead and select this record. So we are going to type select start from books. And as you see, our records are right here. So all 3 records, you see the book ID was an incremental column. So it has an incremented value going from 1 to 3. 3 titles, our authors, and we did not enter any value for published date and description. But when you try out, you are more than welcome to add other columns and other values as well. So that's it from me, guys, for today. I hope this was helpful. We successfully launched a RDS instance of type MySQL. That was our engine. And we launched an EC2 instance, installed the MySQL client, and also connected to our MySQL RDS server, created a database, created a table, inserted a few rows, and then finally selected our inserted rows. So one of the most important thing for this particular tutorial is please ensure that you delete all the resources that you have provisioned. So exit from here, exit from here, exit from here, and ensure that you go ahead and especially delete the RDS instance. Okay, I mean, you don't want to incur any charges on this just because you left it running. And then after you've deleted your RDS instance, ensure that you go ahead and delete your EC2 instance as well. So you click over here on DB instances and then select this and instance actions, delete, say no for the snapshot, you acknowledge it, type delete me and click on delete. If you remember, when we launched this instance, we had actually unchecked the option of deletion protection. And since we had unchecked that option, it is allowing us to delete this RDS instance. And while it is deleting the RDS instance, click on EC2 and delete your EC2 instance as well. In this case, just go ahead and terminate it. So I'm just waiting for the page to load. Okay, actions, instance state, terminate. Click on yes, terminate. Okay, guys, so that's pretty much it. Please post your comments. If you would like me to create videos on any specific topic, do let me know, and I will certainly have them posted. See you later. Thank you for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.